What's up, whiskey fans, and welcome back to another video. Today we are with Global Brand Ambassador Michael Brown from Macleod Distilleries, and he's going to share a little bit of knowledge and history behind Macleod. So, Michael, welcome to South Africa.
Absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
I don't know when you arrived.
So genuinely, I got here a few hours ago. I've been traveling because of all the different connections, it took me about 21 hours, roughly, not that I was counting.
Okay.
And so the first thing I thought was like, I need to go to a whiskey bar. And here I am. And this is an incredible whiskey bar as well.
Yeah, so a big thanks to Whiskey Brother Bar in Morningside for hosting us today. It's absolutely fantastic. Now, give us, for those of you who don't know Macleod Distilleries, just give us a little bit of backstory on Macleod and the brands that you guys uphold and sort of take care of.
Okay, so Macleod, we are the second largest family-owned distillery company in Scotland. So it sounds quite impressive, but actually we're not one of the big guys and we're not one of the small guys, you know? If you think about it, 60% of all distilleries in Scotland are owned by one company, 80% by two, and so everyone else has kind of got the kind of spread around, right? Okay. We've been in the whiskey game for a long time. So we've been, since 1933 was when Macleod was formed on the Isle of Skye. Actually, an interesting rumor for you. So the rumor has never left our company that the original Ian Macleod invited Al Capone to play golf with him on the Isle of Skye so he could convince him to import his whiskey into America. And that rumor has never left, and I never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Okay.
So cut to 70 years later, babies in the whiskey game, and we eventually get enough capital to actually purchase our first distillery, and we become Macleod Distillers in 2003 when we purchased Glengoyne.
Okay. So you guys have got a heap full of brands here. Just walk us through each one and just give us a little bit of like backstory about each and every brand.
Okay, so first distillery we purchased was 2003, Glengoyne, and that's our Highland single malt. Very, very slow distillation, lovely fruity new make spirit, really interesting cask combinations between American oak, European oak, and a phenomenally beautiful distillery. It's consistently voted one of the most beautiful distilleries in the world. Okay. I think it was number 3 last year, although our picture was the thumbnail, so I'll take that. And then we've got Tamdhu, which was our second distillery we purchased. We purchased it from Edrington in 2011. Kind of lesser known distillery, but it's got a bit of a cult following. It was essentially the sister distillery of Macallan for a long time. And so Macallan was the show pony, Tamdhu is the workhorse, and it's making all the blends for Edrington, like Famous Grouse. So if you've had Famous Grouse pre-2010, you've had a little bit of Tamdhu. And we rebranded it when we purchased it. And the big thing for Tamdhu is we believe it to be the only single malt in Scotland where the full maturation of every single bottle of Tamdhu is just completely dedicated to 100% Oloroso sherry casks. Okay. So no bourbon casks, no finishes, that's all the spirit knows. And so then that leads us to the other side of our business, because we own distilleries, but we're also kind of unusually independent bottlers as well. Okay. Again, going back to being like the middle guys, right? So we independently bottle Smokehead. That is our single malt from Islay. It's a mystery malt. No one knows which distillery it comes from. There's now 10 distilleries on Islay, and this is distilled on one of those 10. And then what happens is they give us that new make spirit, and we give them a little bit of Tamdhu and Glengoyne's new make spirit as a kind of swap, like a barter system, which the Scottish whiskey industry is just legendary for. And then we'll mature this fully into our wood policy, and it will be very, very different to what that distillery would normally produce. And we do some crazy cask finishes. Okay. So tequila cask finish, rum cask finish, a stout cask finish as well, which is really cool. And this is my personal favorite, which is the sherry cask.
Okay. Well, that's good.
And then we have Rosebank.
Yeah, I was just about to get to that. You beat me to it. I was going to say, tell me about Rosebank, because it is one of those distilleries that is kind of, like you said, off camera, lost distillery. Yeah. But it just holds so much
like reverence, right?
Like reverence behind it. So what is going to happen? What can we look forward to from Rosebank Distillery?
It's fascinating. A really beautiful story and a really tragic story at the same time. So, to kind of factor this in, so Glengoyne is an old distillery, right? 1833. Tamdhu, 1897. Rosebank also the same, 1840. Really it was kind of seen as the secret sauce in a whiskey blend for a long time. It was always the most sought after in terms of producing blends for a long time. And blends were king for most of whiskey's history. And the reason why is because it's got an extremely unique distillation type. But then what happens is around about 1989, it's discovered as a single malt. Okay. And when it's discovered as a single malt, it's this really unusual combination of being triple distilled, which is unusual for Scottish whiskey, and then having a worm tub condenser. So therefore, it's like the diametrically opposed side of it. So you get a lighter spirit, but then you get a really heavy finish. And that doesn't make any sense unless you were producing a blend and you wanted a little bit at the end, to sort of give you the big finish in a blend. So as a single malt, it was considered to be top 5 whiskies in the world and the king of the lowland region. And then at that point, it closed. So it was like it just had its moment in the sun, and then it closed. Really, really sad. About 12, 15 years later, the distillery is kind of falling apart, and a bunch of guys go into the distillery dressed as workmen, and they actually stole the stills, melted them down for copper, and you've got 150 years of whiskey history gone up in smoke. That still makes me angry. And so our managing director, Leonard Russell, absolute legend in the whiskey industry, we sort of saw this as a big injustice, right? So, we sort of see ourselves as custodians of these great old distilleries, and Rosebank is the exact same. It was a great injustice for him. So, he was trusted by Diageo to purchase the distillery. Other people tried to purchase it beforehand. They didn't really think that they could maybe do as good of a job as what Ian Macleod could, but we've really sort of proven ourselves with this. So we managed to get all of the privately owned, or as many as we could of the privately owned sourced casks. I think we got less than 100 casks of Rosebank, distilled between 1989 and 1993. We got the original blueprints for the stills from Forsyths for the stills, and they've rebuilt them from the exact same dimensions. And so we've got the same stills, just a little bit bigger, but the exact same setup. Also, the still layout doesn't make any sense, but that's Rosebank in a nutshell. 2 years ago, we started filling casks, and last year we're now open to the public as a visiting centre, and it's a phenomenal experience.
That's amazing. I mean, I only have read about Rosebank, never actually tasted Rosebank, so I'm excited to see something coming out of the distillery, and hopefully it will be pretty soon.
Yeah.
What can we see moving forward with these brands? What's on the cards? What's about to come? Just to those whiskey nerds, whiskey geeks, can you throw a little bit of a teaser there for us?
Oh, okay. Let's see what I can say. Glengoyne, first of all. So Glengoyne, really interesting. Has always been sherry focused. Has always been a big sherry bomb. If you was to go into the distillery, which I hope if you ever get a chance to visit any distillery in Scotland, go visit Glengoyne. You are faced with, in Warehouse 1, probably, and I'm a huge whiskey nerd, but I would say this is probably the best example of what happens with different maturation in different types of oak. It's a phenomenal display, and you've got 25 years of the loss of the angel share and exactly the color changing of each type of oak. European oak, American oak sherry cask, American oak bourbon cask, and refill casks. And you just learn so much from just being in that one room. What Glengoyne is now going to become for us, we're going to very slowly steer away from just being sherry casks to also now using it as sort of telling the story of oak.
Okay.
So what we have now is the newest member of the Glengoyne family, which is the Glengoyne 24-year-old white oak. This, and we also have just released a new entry level into our core range, which is a non-age statement called White Oak. It's the first time we've ever released a 100% American oak, and it's 95% first fill bourbon cask and 5% virgin oak. Yes. But that's 24 years in virgin oak. That's not a finish, and it's a big, big difference. And now, as a brand, you've got a Glengoyne 25, which is 100% European oak sherry cask. You've got a Glengoyne 24, which is 100% American oak. And you've got the same new make spirit that's gone into both of those. and both of them are a quarter of a century, and you're going to learn, oh, right, cool, that's what that happens with that type of maturation. That's what happens with this type of maturation. You're going to start to discover what type of oak you like through Glengoyne. I can't reveal too much more, but there will be more different experimentations of different oak. And that is all I will say on that matter.
No, that's perfect. I can't wait. Like I said, I am a big whiskey geek and nerd myself.
Likewise.
So I will keep a lookout for that and see.
Yeah.
Now, you come from a mixologist background.
Yeah.
What is your go-to cocktail?
Do you know, again, sometimes I say it's a tough question, but actually it's a really easy question. I mean, I've been a bartender for going almost 15 years now, and dive bar, 5-star, tiki bar, you name it, right?
Okay.
And I love cocktails. This is the point where a lot of people might switch off. I love using single malt in cocktails as well, more flavor. Old fashions are probably the best. And the reason why is because it's a great blueprint for a recipe, right? You think of an old fashioned, if I was to go to this bar right now, I know they're going to do a great old fashioned. But what you'll probably get, if you don't be specific, is you're going to get bourbon. You'll get 2 shots of bourbon, some sugar syrup, some bitters, stirred down orange peel, right? But, an old fashioned can be 2 shots of any spirit.
Okay.
So then you start looking at that blueprint and you go, well, does it have to be just a simple syrup? Can it be like an almond flavored syrup or a coconut flavored syrup?
Okay.
Can it be a rosemary flavored syrup, Can it be 2 shots of gin? Can it be 2 shots of tequila? Does it have to be 2 shots of the same spirit? So then maybe I'm like, okay, I got a smokehead tequila cask, right? So how about I get 1 shot of a smokehead tequila cask, which is insane. And then I also get 1 shot of añejo tequila and agave syrup and chocolate bitters and stir that down. And I'm like, right, so I went from having 1 cocktail, which is an old fashioned, to now there's an entire world just ready to be stirred and sipped. And it's really,
That's
really
fantastic.
Cool. Yeah, I'm fun at parties.
I can see that. Now, you are the global brand ambassador for Ian Macleod. You've taken over from, I like to call him Mr. Dundas.
Right, so Gordon Dundas is still also the global brand ambassador.
Okay.
But he's the head of advocacy.
Okay.
So he's the guy in charge, he's my boss, right?
Okay.
So he's the guy in charge of all of the advocacy. I'm a global brand ambassador for all of the whiskies. I'm also chief smokehead, and I'm also sort of kind of unofficially, but I actually want to get this in writing, kind of head of mixology for Ian Macleod as well. Then we've also got in our ambassadorial team, Gordon Dallas, which if you've never had a tasting from Gordon Dallas before, he's our whiskey experiential ambassador, and the man lives and breathes whiskey, and you will never have another whiskey tasting like it. Yeah.
I look forward to seeing it.
Yeah, and Philip, just shout out for Philip as well, is our archivist as well.
Okay. So your role is obviously just to promote, push, everything whiskey. Is this your dream job? Or
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. Don't even have to think about it. Yeah. I started off, gin bartending mostly in one of the largest and biggest and best gin bars in Scotland with a huge whiskey portfolio. Yeah. So I knew a lot about gin, and don't get me wrong, I occasionally will have a gin and tonic if I'm feeling light and bright, no problem whatsoever. But I knew about gin, I loved whiskey. And I know I don't sound it, but I'm very patriotically Scottish, right? So then to have a chance to travel the world, giving people whiskey tastings and talk about Scotland, yeah, absolutely sign me up, no problem whatsoever. So as soon as that opportunity became available, I took it with both hands. Yeah.
And jumped at it. No, well, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Finally, last question. If you were stuck on a desert island,
come on.
three bottles of whiskey, what would they be?
Am I on brand? Am I off brand? Or
It's entirely up to you.
Oh, that's so hard.
If you had 3 bottles that you had to choose from, even if it's stuff that's not made anymore, or
do I have an unlimited supply of these bottles?
Yes,
Is
you
this
will.
me on the island with a constant supply of these 3 bottles?
Exactly.
Okay. In that case, then, I would probably say the first thing that comes to mind to me is the Tambly 15. It is how I got my job as a brand ambassador. So I did a tasting for Gordon Dundas, and I gave him and Gordon Dallas a masterclass in Tambly 15, which, if you ever want a nerve-wracking situation, yeah, you want to do that. It went well. I then walked into a pub with my 2 best friends in Scotland, and I ordered a round of Tamdhu 15s and made very loudly to everyone there. It was like, I've just got the job as a global brand ambassador for Tamdhu. And the only other person in that bar was a small Scottish guy who came up to me and says, I just overheard, congratulations. My name's Raymond. I own a small company called Glencairn Cristal. And so immediately I realized the guy that invented the whiskey glass is the only other person in that pub. And he gave me a massive heart-to-heart and told me I've just entered the best industry in the world. Shook my hand, and 3 more Tamdhu 15s appeared, as he's complaining that they're served in tumblers rather than Glencairns. Of course he would, right? So that is a really special whiskey. And it's also probably one of the most balanced whiskies in Ian Macleod's entire portfolio.
Okay.
Another whiskey would be, and it's not just because it's right in front of me, I actually picked it because of it, is the Smoke Edge Sherry Cask. You put a gun to my head, ask me what my favorite style of maturation is. I love smoke and I love sherry. You pushing that gap together is fantastic. And Ian Macleod specialised in sherry casks. We're known as being kind of sherry cask masters. So then add a lovely layer of peat on top of that, and you've got an amazing harmony. It's great neat, but also like Manhattans or old fashions, and it's really, really good as well. And then I suppose I've got to pick something completely different and left field from what I've picked before. Maybe I should pick something off-brand just to prove that I'm passionate, right? At the minute, I would say my favourite whiskey that's off-brand for me would either be the Glen Scotia Victoriana, which has been probably one of my favourite cask strengths of all time. And I could happily, not in one night, but over a period of time, drink that bottle. Or the Glen Glassau Stand End, which just to show you a complete contradiction of what whiskey can be. If I could pick both of those as maybe I get a half-time supply of that and a half-time supply of that. And I'm really, really hoping, because I know some big news came out about Glen Glassau recently, that I'm really hoping that the guys there can continue the production of that, because what Dr. Rachel Barry has done is amazing with that whiskey as well. So, and just to show you how diverse Scottish whiskey can be, because there's like just over 153 distilleries in Scotland, and every single one of them we've all got the same instruments, we just make music slightly differently, right? So they give you the kind of full spectrum of how diverse we can be. I would say those 4, can I cheat? Am I allowed?
Go for it.
There we go, thank you. Breaking the rules.
You're stuck on an island, so 4 bottles not going to...
What are you going to do, right? I'm stuck on the island, yeah. I should probably get a radio, right? So, telegram or something.
But Michael, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Slàinte,
Slàinte. It's been absolutely pleasure having you. I can't wait for... we headed off to a Tamdhu tasting later. Yeah. So I cannot wait for that. And again, just thank you very much. And we hope South Africa has done you proud with
so far so good
whiskeys. So hopefully you can also taste some local stuff as well.
I would love that. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Perfect.
Guys.
Great. Thank you very much. Cheers. Until next time. Cheers for now.
Slàinte.